Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Create Your Life series, where we help you maximize your potential and results in the area of personal development, entrepreneurship, and travel. And I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown.
Create your life.
Crée ta propre vie.
Create your life.
创造你的生活。
Create your life.
Crea la tua vita.
Create your life.
Und skip your liver.
You better create your life.
Create your life.
Create la vie.
Create your life.
Create your life.
Create Your Life series family, happy Sunday. I'm your host, Kevin Y. Brown, and we are here on this beautiful day. Our first thing that we're going to do today is the catch-up session, and the first thing that I want to discuss is last weekend we weren't here live in the studio because one of my good friends got married out in Martha's Vineyard, and that was an amazing experience. So I want to say congratulations to Dustin Jackson and Mrs. Jen Jackson. And so they had a beautiful wedding out in Martha's Vineyard. So it was definitely, I was actually one of the groomsmen, had that honor. So it was beautiful and an honor to be in the wedding. What's been the latest with me? I have actually just returned a couple of hours ago from Atlantic City, had an opportunity to speak out there with CHCR, which is a community health organization out in Staten Island. Had the opportunity to do participate and present for their strategic planning session and discuss effective communication and open up their conference. And that was a beautiful experience. And of course, just beautiful people to work with. And last thing for our catch up session today is I want to say, I lost a titan in my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and his name was George Rodriguez, who was actually influential in making sure that I became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So very saddened by his loss, and he definitely touched a lot of us who are actually brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi. So I want to say rest in peace, rest in paradise, and rest in greatness to him. And that brings us to our guest who we have today, who is actually also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated by way of the Grand Pi chapter in Atlanta, Georgia. So please welcome CEO of Muscle and Bone NYC Fitness, Mr. Tony Laurent.
Wow, man, it's such a pleasure to be here, Kevin. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is amazing, man. I'm so proud of you, and I'm proud to be here. I can't say thanks enough. Before I forget, I brought you a gift, my man.
Oh, you brought me a gift.
I did.
We like prizes, man.
From Muscle and Bone NYC, my man.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, what we have here?
Hope you like it.
Oh, yeah, I'm wearing this. It's a track jacket. Oh, yeah, man.
Good. Nice
yes.
quarter zip for you.
Thank you. This
Yes,
will keep
sir.
me warm. You know, skinny brothers, we get a little cold in the winter, so definitely be happy to wear this. Thank you.
That's good. I'm glad you're welcome.
Thank you. So, Tony, man, I want to jump right in. I've been wanting to get you on the show for, a few months now,
It's
actually.
been a minute,
Yeah, so what is Muscle and Bone, man? Tell the Create Your Life series family what Muscle and Bone is.
All right, so Muscle and Bone is it's a brand that is dedicated to fixing postural imbalances, to helping people change their lives from the way they eat to the way they live on their weekends, if they are actual athletes, to the way they perform on the field, if they are desk jockeys and have a sedentary job at a financial company or a law firm or anything like that, where they sit at a desk for hours at a time, and their posterior chain, the backs of their bodies from their ankles all the way up to their shoulders, those muscles start to get long and relaxed, and they lose their tension, their ability to flex, and you start to have pain in your shoulders or in your knees or in your hips, and that creates later on some bigger issues.
Okay, so what are How did you get interested in that particular aspect of, I guess, fitness or posture, man? How did posture come up on your radar?
All right, so that's a really interesting story, and I'll try to keep it as brief and concise as I can. So I've been an athlete my whole life. I studied Shotokan when I was a kid. I grew up in a Shotokan dojo.
And Shotokan is?
Shotokan is a Japanese form of martial arts, a striking form of martial arts, and my sensei was Sensei Shorty Mills. He's a legend, a living legend, fantastic instructor as well. One of the best teachers I've ever had, and I've had some really good teachers in general from my college days, my high school days, even elementary school days, but I've had some really good teachers who taught me a lot, and his methodology and philosophies, I carried them with me to this day. So I started off after studying finance in Morehouse. First job out of college was at a bank called Northern Trust.
Okay.
And I knew quickly that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't stand the wait. I hated that wait. You got to wait your turn before somebody gives you some shine, before they give you a chance.
Okay, so you talk about a promotion or anything like that. Okay.
Any kind of responsibility that gives you a chance to shine. Mm-hmm. So I eventually left there, and I thought I wanted to become a real estate guy, so I bought my first house. I was like 24 years old. I bought this big graystone building in Chicago, man. I'm from Chicago, born and raised.
Right.
And I almost lost everything I owned. It was a huge house, 4,400 square feet in the front house. It was a big old graystone building, and it had a coach house in the backyard that was 2,200 square feet. So this thing pretty much should have been gutted, but I did kind of a piecemeal Band-Aids patch-up deal. And I almost lost everything I owned. I almost had to declare bankruptcy, all that. So in the interim, after going through that experience, I decided that I wanted to do what my original passion was finance. And when I came out of college, I went to Northern Trust only because there was all but a hiring freeze on Wall Street at the time. Okay. Whatever the case, they weren't hiring me.
Where'd you go to college at?
I went to a school called Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Just wanted to check because oftentimes we have guests on, and our different guests, they have different levels of education. So
Absolutely.
Definitely usually entrepreneurs, trailblazers and things like that. But hey, there's no set form or right way of education in order to be great. So I always have to ask that question.
So true.
So you figure out that you're into posture. Did you have something going on with your posture that made you want to?
Good question. So as I transitioned into my trading career,
right, at Northern Trust.
From Northern Trust, I actually started trading at a company called Schoenfeld Securities here in the city. It's no longer around as Schoenfeld, but I moved to New York in 1996, and I traded for the most part till about 2007. I started trading in Chicago in 1993.
Okay.
Moved to New York in 1996, and traded the entire time until about 2007, like I said. And the whole time I was working out, but I was having these pains in my shoulders, and I couldn't figure out why. So I had people look at me in the gym, trainers, they say, yeah, okay, I'll train you. We'll give a physical therapy-like session. Mm-hmm. And I was getting bulkier, and I was putting on some good muscle. It looked good, but it wasn't functional. And I was still having these pains in my shoulders. And then I noticed that I was getting pains in my knees. And I was like, what's going on? These are non-contact injuries. These are just injuries that are coming about, pains that are coming about from sitting down for extended periods of time.
Wow.
So then, after 2007, I'm going to answer your question, Kevin. I'm sorry. I'm taking this long, circuitous route.
No, man.
After 2007, I was having these. I was struggling with being in the markets the way I was as a trader. I was taking on so much risk, and it was affecting my sleep for years. It was affecting the way I ate, and I was having these nosebleeds. I was having blood in my stools, and I'd have these panic attacks that would just come from nowhere. I'd just start shaking out of nowhere, and then seconds later, minutes later, it was gone like it never even happened.
Wow.
So I was talking to my parents for years about it. I had those problems for years. And eventually my mom said something like, we didn't raise you to tell you what to do. But one of the things, your dad and I think you ought to consider doing is something very different from trading. And I go like, what, real estate? She goes, no, modeling or acting. Now, at the time, Kevin, I was almost 40 years old. So I was like, you guys just gave me some of the most irresponsible recommendation, advice, whatever I could ever receive. I'm almost 40 years old. You're telling me to go into acting or modeling? They're like, yeah, just try it. Mm-hmm. So I asked my then wife what she thought about it. And she goes, oh, hell yeah. So I go, you guys are all crazy, but I'll try it. And then I said, okay. Called my friends who had been in acting. and they gave me some suggestions on schools, and I went with this one particular school. I went to audit a class, and I fell in love with it. Acting was not at all like what I thought it was. I thought acting was, if you want to look happy, you smile. If you want to look sad, you frown. And I thought I was kind of hamming it up and being overly dramatic. So,
and what did you find? What did you find that acting was?
I found out that acting is a whole lot of preparation for living in somebody else's shoes, living your own backstory that might be similar to that character's situation. So what that meant was I had to tap into my emotional past and things that were either funny, but for the most part, they were sad and they were painful. And I was just going through a divorce shortly thereafter.
Okay.
And the beauty of that divorce was that after I had gone through acknowledging the failure of marriage. Because my parents have been together 55, 56 years now, married.
Okay.
So that was my gauge. So after I had, taken all this time to analyze why I failed, I was able to tap into that emotional reserve and put it into my acting.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, so you felt like acting was the outlet for you.
Exactly.
To let out that emotion and that frustration that you may have had.
Cathartic.
By going through. Okay. How did you improve your health and your fitness? Well, obviously you were in shape during this time of, this transition.
So I was in shape only because I had started boxing in about 2001. Mm-hmm. And I had some teachers around the city, a couple guys, they taught me just enough. They were fighters themselves, but they weren't real coaches. And they had taught me enough to, be able to throw a jab and be able to throw a cross, a hook, uppercut, all in technique. But they didn't teach me how to fight. So learning how to fight was a whole different skill. And then learning how to fight is when I got into shape. But being in shape was cardiorespiratory shape. What wound up happening was my acting needed a job, needed to be supported by a career that gave me the flexibility to go to audition.
Right, and so the finance career wasn't something that you felt could do it? What were your hours like when you were working in finance? On
an average, I'd get to work about 7:30
in the morning.
Markets, yeah, I'd plan my day, plan my trading strategy. Markets open at 9:30. I would trade aggressively from 9:30 till about 11, in and out of some things from 11 to about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then the last hour and a half until 4 o'clock, very, very aggressive trading. And it's a compact day. Mm-hmm. It's 7:30 till 5.
Right.
But you're going through so many different emotions and so much intensity in a shortened amount of time that it's hard to even explain. It's hard to even fathom it that I did that so long ago.
How many years did you do it?
I traded for the better part of 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that toll that it took on your body is what helped you to seek that other opportunity in acting and coaching. Exactly. Okay. So tell us more about how you fixed or how you recorrected your posture. What was going on with your posture? Because I'm still curious. A lot of times you see people who are talking about you need to get in shape. You should be fit and, you should eat this and things like that. But they never really talk about the effects of sitting for long term, how it affects your body. So I'm still very curious in how it is that you found that to be one of your focuses.
No, it's funny you say that. I just read an article recently where they're saying that sitting is the new smoking. It's so unhealthy to sit for extended periods of time. They're calling it the new smoking. But again, Kevin, I can't take any credit for, having the foresight to say, I need to get my body together. It didn't happen like that. It was total happenstance. So when I became a trainer, I had to get a certification. I worked for a gym in the city. They required that you get a certification. I got that certification. I'm a student by nature. I love to learn new stuff. That's where I grow. I love travel too, but that's all part of being a student. But after I took that first certification, I was on fire. I wanted to learn more. This first one gave you a base level of the science behind training, the science behind your metabolism, the science behind cellular level change in the muscles, how you stack different workouts, how you order different workouts, the different intensities for different experiences of people who work out as you train them. So the next thing for me was to ask my superiors what they thought the next best thing for me to do was. And the regional manager happened to be in the office that day, and he said, Tony, I think you ought to do what's called a corrective exercise certification.
Okay.
So I just listened to him and just signed up for it right there. Got the book, was fascinated. Because in that book, I saw exactly where my problems were and why I had them and how I had to start getting rid of them.
Okay.
So that's how I stumbled into the postural corrective exercise movements.
Right, because oftentimes with entrepreneurship, people they're trying to fix issues that they may be having personally or some experience, and they want to capitalize it on it, and then share that experience and that solution with everybody else.
Right.
So, I definitely appreciate you sharing that with us, Tony. Please tell us about transferring or transitioning careers from big Wall Street trader into actor. Our trainer.
Man, you talk about me breaking out to a sweat now, going back to that time. That was a really difficult decision because, at the time, and even today, I know this for a fact, there weren't too many black traders on the street. And for me, that was almost a badge of honor for me to say that I was a trader on Wall Street. And I got caught up in the title. I really did get caught up in the title. And it wasn't until years after that I was away from it that I was able to come to terms with this fact. So much of my identity had become tied to that title that it was embarrassing. It was more embarrassing for me to declare myself an actor/trainer initially than it was for me to say I'm unemployed. Does that make sense?
It does. It was because of your identity.
Because of my identity. I was struggling with what people were going to say about my decision. Man, he was making all that loot back in the day. What is he doing now? Why did he make that decision? What kind of people does he have in his life who would allow him to go down that path? And people who know me well understand that for me, I'm not just this random thrill seeker guy. I am the kind of guy who's trying to grow and trying to become better. Bless you. I'm trying to become more spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about any type of religion. I'm talking about tapping into this thing called humanity that connects us all together.
Right.
I'm trying to really explore who I am and where I fit in the universe. And one of the things that I've discovered is one of my callings is to coach people. And I coach people. I was a coach as a trader. I was training guys who were taking, my methods, and they were making money with them. As a coach in acting, I will try to bring out certain nuances, certain colors, certain textures in certain scenes from actors who might require some external help. As a trainer, obviously, I'm a coach. I'm a boxing coach as well. I teach people how to throw technique. I teach people the fundamentals of boxing. I teach people the techniques of lifting. Because you can look at a lift and all you'll see is somebody taking a weight and pushing it off their body. Well, in reality, there's a whole lot more going on inside that body with the shoulder position, the hips position, certain muscles that you're activating, other muscles you want to deactivate in that pushing. So there's a whole lot of that involved.
How did you move through that embarrassment? What is that process like of making that transition, of overcoming it? And who helped you?
First thing you got to do is just to look at it squarely for what it is, man. You can't run from it. The more you run from it, the more it's going to be there. It's like a shadow.
You're talking about the transition.
I'm talking about the embarrassment factor.
Right.
You have to deal with that. You have to accept that this was my life at that time. Now I am making a decidedly different move in a decidedly different direction. And
because
that's going to... Go ahead. I'm sorry, Kev.
Because it's more in tune with your purpose.
Absolutely.
So it was worth the money for you to create your life and go in the direction that you felt was best for you.
That's exactly what kept me afloat, because I was going toward my purpose. That's it. I'm so glad you said that. I was going toward my direction of coaching people and coaching people to become better at whatever they're doing. That's exactly my point. Absolutely. And that's what helped me to settle into my gigs and to get past that embarrassment. And I'm so glad that I managed to do that, because in that, came this new level of, I've always been a pretty confident dude, but a new level of real experience, kind of battle-tested, scar tissue developed.
Right. So you moved from embarrassment to confidence
And empowerment, absolutely.
and empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what would you say was the recipe for that? Was it the action of getting up? Like, what was it like every day? You getting up, you stop trading, boom, and now you getting up every day. You got to look at Tony in the mirror, man. What describe those feelings to me?
Okay, so one of the things that I've always kind of followed a thought, an axiom. I always felt like positive thinking was not the way to go for me. I always thought that it was more important to be a critical thinker, and that meant to look at whatever the situation was and come up with the best solution at the moment. For example, if I'm in a boat and the boat is sinking, I can't think myself positively into safety. I have to grab an oar,
Right.
and somebody has to grab a bucket and throw the water out of the boat, and I got to start rowing back to shore. So that's a critical thought instead of just thinking positively.
Critical thought and the action.
Absolutely. It's the activity that keeps you going. Because if you sit back and you think too much, that whole paralysis by analysis,
Yeah, absolutely.
that'll kick in. And the more time you have to think, the more time you have to wallow, and the more time you have of inaction, inactivity, nothing's being done.
Wow. Okay.
I also believe that through activity, through action, right, wrong, or indifferent sometimes, if you have a plan in place and it makes sense, you'll go in a direction, you'll pick an action, and that action will lead you to a spot where there's a fork in the road and you have to make a different decision. And many times, through action, you find your way naturally.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. You're going through this transition. You're feeling embarrassed a little bit. You're on your way to confidence. Who are those people? Who is your peer group at that time in your corner making sure that you stay afloat? Because I know self-motivation is one thing, man, but sometimes we need that little push in our back from our friends as well. So what did your peer group look like? And, who were some of the people in your corner at that time?
So,
And what were they doing?
So I have
to support you.
One of my best friends here in the city is a surgeon. He's a pretty well-known guy, and he was extra supportive. I know he probably thought I was crazy deep down inside, probably still does. We had dinner last night, and we always have these conversations like, the ones we're having now. But he's a guy who is of the opinion that you do what you want to do with passion, and that's your track. The money comes as the money comes, and the money's going to be a byproduct of your effort. So I had him in my corner. He's a surgeon. I had to kind of break away from my financial guys because they were still looking at me like I had three heads. They couldn't quite grasp the concept. But I do have a couple guys who still are in my corner who are traders. One in particular, I let him manage a little bit of my money too. He's a good guy. I started surrounding myself with a lot of trainers and a lot of acting coaches. One of the greatest coaches in the world of acting is a woman named Susan Batson, and to her I owe much gratitude. Susan taught me exactly what I told you about, how to tap into my emotional resources, into my past, things that normally people want to shun and not remember because it shakes them up too much. Well, as an actor, your job is to dig down deep into those things, remember them, and remember what you were doing, what you were wearing, what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what was in that room when you got the news. That's how you tap in. It's ugly, it's not attractive by any stretch, but it's effective, and it's the stuff that wins Emmys and Grammys, or Emmys and Oscars.
Because it's authentic.
Exactly. So between the trainers and the actors, those are the ones that really kept me afloat and focused in the acting. But then I had my friends back in Chicago who were always supportive no matter what. They were always like, we're your biggest fans. We're rooting for you all the way. Whatever you have to do, we know that you stick your head in and you just do it to death. You do it 100%. And that's also one of the things that I am. I am captain, overboard when it comes to getting involved in something. I don't know how to go halfway.
Hey, you all in, man. And
Absolutely.
that's what we're about here, man. Is your peer group still trainers and acting coaches? Are you still even acting? What are some of the things?
Oh yeah, I'm always acting. That's always there. My acting is I gave up my dreams of being the next Denzel, but one of the things that I love to do is to just create my characters. I get these roles sometimes. Typically, I have my roles handed to me from people I've done projects before with, and I have 2 movies that I'm waiting to come out that I did last year. It's it kind of drives you nuts. You wait for these things to actually come out.
What were those 2 movies, or what projects have you been a part of?
All right, one is in a working title. They have the working title as Friends, but because they have done a couple movies called Friends, or rather it's called Neighbors, I'm sorry, because you've already had a couple movies titled Neighbors, and there's one more recent than the other one, they can't use that title. So it's a function of them trying to figure out what they're going to call it. This by the Beniamini brothers, 2 guys I've done 3 films with already now.
Are these independent film, or are these going to be major?
These are always independent films. Yeah, I would love to do major blockbuster films, but my focus is, as an actor, my focus is still to make sure that I have close ties to my clients. And if you spend too much time away from your clients, your business goes away.
Gotcha.
And that is my lifeline.
Right.
And that is my calling back to my purpose. I cannot get too far away from my clients.
Right. Well, man, what's the key to balancing those 2 things, man? The coaching and the acting. What is the key?
It always comes down to priorities. So I structure my day based on what needs to be done most urgently and most vitally. And this is something I got away from. The reason I had some success on Wall Street back in the day was because I adhered to this every single day. I would write down my goals for the week, and I would just make sure that I accomplished every single one of them before that week had been completed. You break those goals down into tactics and milestones and all that. So in doing that, I was able to get some consistency in my results because I had consistent action. Consistent activity breeds consistent results.
Say that again, man.
Consistent activity breeds consistent results. So,
consistent results. I'm writing that down right now. Go ahead. I'm listening.
So I try to make sure that my clients are always prioritized, always at the top of the list.
Right.
And then, in the event that they need me, and I'm not reachable, I have somebody that they can reach out to who will train them.
Absolutely. Team.
Absolutely.
So you got the contingency plan and work and play. For those out there who are going through a transition, right? How you went from finance into acting and training. What are some of the keys that you would say that they should do or have in place before making that transition, or as they are?
So I think it's really important that people have some type of nest egg that they can fall back on. It can be savings. It can be some kind of structured loan that they took out from a friend or something, hopefully at a very low interest rate, if an interest rate exists for it at all. I think it's more important to deal with the mental side of it. The mental component is critical. The reason I was able to transition, and the reason I even took the shot to transition from trading into acting and into training, was that I had experience in that type of transition before, and I had success in that transition. And
what kind of transition was that? What's the transition that you went through that helped you prepare?
That was that transition from being a real estate guy who bought his house and at 24 and darn near lost his shirt to becoming a trader. And not being a salaried trader, to being a proprietary trader, which means if I wanted to eat, I had to kill. I had to buy, say, IBM at 100 and hopefully sell it later on that day at 101, 102, 100 and a half. I had to make more profit than I had in losses. And then we got paid at the end of the month. So if we had a net positive month, we got paid and we split the profits with the owner of the business.
Wow.
If we lost money, we didn't make any money that month. So I had stretches of months and months and months, quarters, where I did not make money.
And that is entrepreneurship, brother. Sometimes,
Absolutely.
You go through those droughts, and then you hit that, you find out what your key things are that make you make you successful, man, and you stick to them. What'd you just say? Consistent activity breeds consistent results.
Yes,
and
sir.
if you can consistently do the things that are making you successful, then you're gonna eat during those months versus others.
And if you consistently lay on the couch all day, you're gonna consistently not make any money.
Right.
So yeah, it goes both ways. I think it's really important to have experiences, and for people, I know for me especially, it was very important for me to have the ability to draw off of those past experiences, not just the successes, but the failures, because in those failures, I was always trying to find what happened that made that attempt unsuccessful. I always tried to figure out, what did I do wrong, or what did I miss, or what could I have done differently to create a successful outcome.
Okay, so when you're talking about the experiences, so the experiences are one thing. I think the mind state around them is another. You know, because if you take the L and you haven't made any money this quarter, then yeah, that's an experience. But how did you keep your positive attitude or that mode of thinking to stay within action and to keep going? I feel like that's what our listeners need to know.
So I was able to figure out early on that when I wasn't making money as a trader in the very beginning stages, I was able to see what mistakes I was making. Trading emotionally, for example. When stocks would move against me too much, whatever that too much was, I would just blow out of them. And inevitably, I'd sell them at the bottom. Or if I were short them, I would buy them back at the top, and then they would correct and then go in the same direction that I thought they wound up going on in the first place. So I turned winning trades into losing trades. So I had to figure out, okay, what do I have to do differently? That meant I had to adjust my timing, and I had to adjust the size of the trade. Instead of going in with a whole lot of shares, I had to go in with smaller shares because I don't know if my timing might be a little off, and those things need room to breathe. So in that room to breathe, what happens? If I buy it, does it go down? How far does it go down? If it goes down 2 points, then I don't want to have it anymore. And I've lost 2 points on very few shares, as opposed to losing 2 points on a whole lot of shares.
Right.
So that's one thing I learned. Then you learn the timing of it. So if a stock looks good and I want to start buying it, fine. I try to figure out little points in the market or points in that stock during the trading day where my entry points might be. If I see it looks good, I have to be very, very calm and not just say, okay, I want to buy this thing. If the thing's going straight up, I can't just jump in and buy it. I have to wait for this thing to pull back a little bit. Again, if it comes in, I buy it, small shares. If it acts in the way I want it to act, I start getting bigger in it.
Okay, so not trading or acting out of emotion. This is a change in mindset. How long did it take you in order to make this transition?
It took about a solid year and a half to figure the whole thing out, because you don't learn it after doing it once.
Right.
You might know it. You might know that you did the wrong thing, but you don't get it until you get sick of doing the same mistakes over and over and over. You're like, finally, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of this. I'm going to try it the right way. And then finally you're in it and you're shaking. You're like, oh, and then you say, okay, fine. And you see it working. You're like, here it is. Okay. Then your motivation to do it again and again. And you start getting more confident, and you start adding size, adding share size to the positions.
Absolutely.
And next thing you know, you can't stop the money from coming in.
Right.
And again, it goes back to the money being a byproduct of doing the right thing. Consistent actions breed consistent results.
Right. Because, the funny thing is, I remember I was in my freshman year of college, I believe, and I was home, and I went to visit my high school principal, Mr. Tony Gross. And he said, Kevin Brown, what you up to? I said, man, Mr. Gross, I'm working on, this clothing company, and, man, I'm going to make it big. And I tell him some exponential amount of money that I'm going to make. And he says, well, let me tell you this. There's no job called making money. He said, you make money by being good at something. And I never, ever forgot that. And I thought that was probably been one of the most impactful quotes that I ever got. But I'm listening to you right now, and I'm hearing the tone of your voice and how you're getting hyped up. And so, to me, what I'm getting from you is right now we're talking about the subject of money because you were a trader.
Right.
But these same principles are not acting with emotion and being consistent and creating, consistent action, is breeding those results. This happens in any area of life.
Exactly.
So I got to ask you, man, where's your passion come from?
You know what, man? I come from a really loud and passionate family, and I like to laugh. I like to spend time with my people. I like hanging out with kind of like-minded people who want to live, upwardly mobile-minded. They want to do better for themselves, but money is not the end game. Money, just for money's sake, isn't the end game. Money is a tool, in my opinion. It's a very, very important tool, and the more you have of that tool, the more you can do. So that said, I need people around me who are pushing me to become a better, stronger, whatever, fill in the blank. If it's a better brother, if it's a better son, if it's a better trader. And I still do some money management, by the way. I still manage a small portfolio.
Okay.
If it's a better money manager, if it's a better trainer, if it's a better actor, if it's a better acting coach. I want people around me who are pushing me to do that. And not just saying it, who are setting the examples themselves.
Right. You got to walk that walk, man.
Yeah.
That's huge. And it's funny because, when we speak about walking that walk, I met you through Kevin Gray, who,
KG.
Yeah, KG, man. Gecko Gordon. And, when you talk about people walking that walk and talking that talk, and it's a reflection of your peer group, man, because,
absolutely.
I met Kev through Chris, who was also on the show, and then Kev had Tanya Simmons-Reed on the show, who is the president of Vanessa Blake Cosmetics. So there's this whole group of people who are, like you said, walking that walk and talking that talk, and it makes just a huge difference.
Kevin Gray is one of those guys who I train, and it's interesting because we talk during our sessions. Like I will put the burn on him. I will make him burn. But
Dude,
while he is burning,
he texted me today and said, when Tony's on the show, ask him why he maims his clients. He's always complaining, man, about your work. I was like, man, Tony said I can't eat this, I can't do that.
The thing about Kevin Gray, man, is this guy not only walks it, he runs the run. He runs the talk. He walks the talk. He runs it. He eats it. He sleeps it. He lives it every single day. He's trying to put people like me and you together. That was intended. He did that on purpose.
Right? Yeah.
That you don't meet many people like that. You don't meet many people who think outside of themselves, who see bigger picture things. So shout out to Kev, man. Nice work, Kev, on the training, and man, you're a beautiful brother on the inside. Keep doing big things, man. Appreciate
Absolutely. And most recently, man, I got to ask you about this. How was your experience in South Africa?
Oh, man, that was absolutely life-altering, man. I still get goosebumps when I think about going into Soweto. We had this tour guide. His name was Vusi, V-U-S-I. He had his American name was Trevor. Vusi was from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And it was fascinating to hear this guy's functional knowledge of everything that happened in Soweto. He was taking us to all these different spots. And this was kind of an informal, okay, I'm going to take you to Soweto. It wasn't an organized tour group. It was one guy in the hotel who we paid money to take us to Soweto. So we were thinking, he's going to pretty much be the equivalent of a driver. And we're going to have to figure things out as we went. No, this guy, as soon as we hit the turnoff of whatever that highway is called, you have this humongous military base.
Right.
And the history of that military base, fascinating. The reason it's there to begin with, fascinating. You have all these, as you know, you have all the sand dune looking structures and you wonder what they are. Then you start realizing they're all over Johannesburg. And you start realizing how much gold those sand dunes produced.
Yes,
how
man.
much wealth that country has and had. I won't get into the specifics of had, but
right.
That tour guide, back to Vusi, the level of knowledge and the specifics, and this man was from Zimbabwe.
And he knew that much about South Africa.
He was so passionate, man. He had me engaged the very second we got into that car. He was giving us historical context, not just history, but historical context. And I'm an historian by nature, man. I'm a student. Love learning about history, especially things that happened in my lifetime, like a Soweto. Whew. Blown away, bro.
Okay. So you going back?
Oh, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
A matter of when. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the musical influence on you.
Man, that music was beautiful. I was taken aback. I had no idea. They were playing a lot of American hip-hop when we went to the club, and they were pumping it. It was cool. It was like being in New York. But then they started playing this different sound, and it had this house music kind of flow. 1 song, 2 songs, 3 songs, and it takes you to a different place, man. This music is amazing.
Yeah, man. Like I don't look at music the same anymore after that experience.
It's hard to.
I don't look at life the same anymore.
Yeah.
And you only stayed in Joburg? Did you have a chance to go to Cape or to Durban?
No, we were only in Joburg, only in Josie. Yep.
Man, there's so many other beautiful places. Being right there, you're not far from Victoria Falls, Drakensberg. You go shark dive. dude, but the people there, like you said, Vusi, you know, my tour guide's name was Tipo, and he was from there. He was actually from Soweto, a native, and we were staying in the Mabaning district down there. And, you know, I want to give a shout out to my guy, Beck. Beck is like 23 years old. If you're ever going to South Africa and you're looking for a backpacker, stay at Curiosity Backpackers, man. Beautiful people. This dude is about 22, 23 years old. He runs the Backpackers. It's his. He owns it. And he just opened up another one in Durban on the beach, man.
Wow.
I'm looking to have him on the show.
Beautiful.
To, you know, him and Tipo to phone in, man, and really talk about their experience of building that business up there. But when I'm there, you know, just having that conversation with them and talking about their business, talking about what the plight of being an entrepreneur is in South Africa. Being a native, you know, a black entrepreneur there, you know, that experience of going and getting the grants and what initiatives that they have there, man. I'm having this conversation, and I'm still only shooting the Create Your Life series YouTube videos, not knowing that, you know, the radio show's coming a year or two later, but just having that and just those people, man. But that house music is everything. I just can't look at music the same anymore. Yeah. Where else have you been? Or
around the world?
Yeah, around the world, man.
Man, that's one of my absolute passions. I've been to my favorite place is probably, I'll say, Sydney, Australia. Been to Bali. That's probably a close second.
Why these places?
Sydney was just beautiful, man. It's on the water.
Did you go to Koji Beach?
I don't think so. Kev, you're the man, dude. I can't keep up with you in this travel, these specifics, these locations, man. Come on.
You've been to Bali, man. I haven't been. I'm just asking. You said the beaches, and you said it's on the water, so I just wanted to know which ones you made it to, man.
I did a boat tour. And,
okay.
You know, that was pretty cool. You know, I saw a guy who fed a seagull from his hand. The seagull's flying next to the boat. He pulled out a cookie and stuck it in the air in his hand, and this seagull dipped down and was flying next to the boat, nibbling on this cookie as this guy held it up.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before. Did Western Europe. That was cool. I'm going to say my favorite place in Europe is, I'm going to have to go with either Paris or Rome. No, Venice. Paris or Venice in Western Europe.
Why?
I like history. And if you see all these statues and these monuments and the fountains and the stairs, the Spanish stairs, it's just so much beauty, so much architectural beauty, man, just surrounding you. And then you have that juxtaposed against the landscaping and the buildings, the architecture, just a lot of beauty kind of crammed up against each other, all almost in conflict, but it works. It works.
Almost in conflict, but it works. And I feel like that's kind of what conditioning is a bit. Sometimes you have the conflict, or conditioning or training, right? Sometimes you have the conflict of the customer or who you're training. They're saying, man, I really want to do this, but they're a little reluctant. And after they get in there with you, then it works. So with Muscle and Bone NYC, man, how did you come up with the name? I really have to ask, 'cause I like it.
All right, my man.
And I like the logo too. So
unbeknownst to many here, my nickname from college is Bone. And so we were working out, trying to develop some muscle tone. And I am tone. So muscle and tone wasn't going anywhere.
Okay.
So I'm Bone, Muscle and Bone. That was it.
Okay. How'd you get the nickname Bone?
I was really thin in high school. So they started calling me like T-Bone, and that was shortened to Bone. I was about 135 pounds soaking wet in high school, man.
Hey, man, we share similar similar reality in that regard. I probably went to college about 135. But okay, so man, what's up? What's next for Muscle and Bone? What's next for Tony Laurent, the actor, CEO of Muscle and Bone?
Well, right now we're looking to expand. We're looking to hire some trainers so I can handle some overflow.
Okay.
And I can start to deal with more visionary stuff, the longer term,
absolutely,
bigger
the BD
stuff, exactly. And at some point soon, right now I train out of a place called Velocity on 58th and Lex. At some point soon, I'd like to have my own space.
Okay.
So we're always looking for little studios that we can possibly open. The actor guy has a couple commercial auditions coming up soon. Keep your fingers crossed. The finance guy is. I'm always looking at I'm never too far away from the markets, man. And right now, things, to me, in my opinion, they just feel a little heavy. Real estate markets feel kind of frothy and kind of heavy. I'm not feeling, like I want to be involved heavily on the long side in the markets. So I'm trying to, take some little cash out of here and there and be positioned for the possibility whenever it hits, there's going to be some kind of sell-off. I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, the year after that, but something's coming soon.
Okay. So how can the trainers who are actively wanting to become a part of Muscle and Bone, how do they get in contact with you?
You can reach me on my website, www.muscleandboneyc.com. My number's on there, but in case you don't have access to the internet, my number is 917. Our number is 917-238-3650. And the email address you want to use is info@muscleandbonenyc.com.
Okay. And if somebody's looking to become a client of yours, do they use the same contact information?
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Tony, man, I want to say thank you for coming, brother.
Thanks,
and being on the
man.
show. Create Your Life series. And we'll be back, you guys, with a quick recap. We just had the opportunity to have Mr. Tony Laurent, CEO of Muscle and Bone NYC, here on the Create Your Life series. So what I want to do is recap on some of the amazing points that he gave. He dropped a lot of jewels, and I thought that was just amazing the way that he pulled it together and dropped some things for us. So number one of the best things that he said is that critical thought and action are stronger than positive thinking, because you can't think yourself positively off of a sinking boat. So that was huge. Another gem that we took away from him was to surround yourself with people who are doing what you do and who believe in you. When he talked about making that transition from finance into acting and then later on into being a personal trainer, he said that he had to get away from his finance buddies because they were looking at him like he had three heads. Like, why would you give away this amazing title? Why would you give away, this amount of money that you're making every year? So I thought that was big. Another one, jewel, that he dropped is do not become attached to your title, because your title is not your identity. And so he talked very candidly about that embarrassment and going through the process of overcoming that, and how his peers, again, those people who you should surround yourself with, how they supported him in his transition. Another jewel that he dropped was actually a quote, and he said that consistent action breeds consistent results. And the last one that I'm going to leave with you is that in his terms, he said not to trade, but we're also going to say it's important for us not to trade or for us to act out of emotion, but to, again, go back to that critical thinking and just think a little bit before we react or before we act. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the wrap of this Create Your Life series episode. But I want to tell you that if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have anything that you want to say to any of our past guests, just add us at CYL series on Instagram.com. If you're someone who feels like you want to be on the Create Your Life series, that you should be one of our featured guests. If you know someone, then email us at CYLS@LegacyThinkingLabs.com. We'd be happy to talk to you. And again, beautiful people, happy Sunday. And we are looking forward to being with you next week.
Muscle, 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 bone, bone. Muscle, 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 bone.